Welcome to this encore of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. This is a replay. This is something that we found immediately useful, is packed with information, and worth listening to again. So welcome. We've pulled Steve Rohr and the episode that he was in called Lead with Personality for You. And it's important because with so much information, with everybody being overloaded and so much competing for our time, whoever our might be, it's the mission of a company to connect with the customers that they can provide solutions to. And so being able to find the right people at the right time with the right message is more critical than ever before. We've got to shift from a desire of passing something from us and then identifying with a brand and then choosing the brands that believe the same things we do into something that we can use as a company. So we become the stewards of this mission. We decide what the identity is and the things that the people who work for us stand for and the values that we have and the way we come together to do our work is evident, so evident that the people that choose us as one of their brands that they love and support, that they stand by, becomes possible. How we used to define a brand has changed, and the actions of a single individual impacts both the perception of what a brand stands for and the real mission being evaluated by the actions of the people working at our companies. We also talk about communication and a few other things in this program that you're going to enjoy as well that make it easy to listen to, and you will take something away very quickly that you can use right when we're done. Enjoy this encore.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
And here's Jess.
Steve! I don't even want to talk anymore. I want Steve to talk a little.
Yes, I'm so excited. You're right. We were talking right before the show that we planned this, I don't know, weeks, months in advance. And I kept thinking, did I miss this? That was the one I wanted to do, because I think this topic is sensational. And I think it's one that many people don't think about, and perhaps they should. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Jess.
We do. We all need to think about it more because we get told we're being groomed for this position, or how do we climb the corporate ladder, and what is a corporate ladder today, and what is a career journey, and anybody can just quit their job and start their own business. Yet, if we don't know who we are, none of that's really possible.
That's exactly right. And you were talking about your authentic self, or, aligning with the brand that you have, or are being ostracized by your team if you're a little outspoken or not in line with the company policy. There are a lot of pitfalls, but a lot of promises when it comes to brand personality. So where do you want to start?
Oh, did you say grand personality?
How about brand? Okay, so now we better copyright that immediately.
I know. I was thinking, why hasn't anybody come up with that before?
That is our trademark now.
Our new trademark. Brand. Yeah. Well, I'd like to start with this concept and being in the public a lot and doing what you do every single day. We have this shift of what a brand is and the role of a brand in our life. And when you take a look of that difference between not people, but the actual brand itself, what have you seen changing in the last, I don't know, it could even be 6 months, but few years?
Well, what's changing almost daily is social media and how it impacts our personal brand and professional brand, as well as our company's brand. And now people have so much more access to the brand, but we have the opportunity to spread the brand as we hope and want it to spread. So that's really what has changed. We no longer have these layers and layers and layers to get to the PR or marketing department. It's right there online. So if you have trouble on an airline, you can tweet that airline, and that goes worldwide. And then, of course, the brand or the airline has to come back and and fix it in some way. So it's immediate. It's really immediate, which is fantastic, but also something to think about as you're managing your brand. But social media has certainly changed the entire landscape.
So if let's say I'm middle management or executive management in an organization, and I must have, how about this? How important is it for me as a manager and a senior manager and an executive to have then a social presence? Can I keep my head in the sand and stay offline?
Not anymore. Not anymore, but it gets very tricky. So first of all, you have a brand that is internal. So your team sees you as some kind of leader, fill in the blank there for your own personality. And then at the outside, well, the exterior, what's happening with consumers and with business to business, they also see you as a kind of a brand. And then you have the brand of your company. So I encourage people to align those as best as possible. Now, when it comes to personal social media, personal is personal and professional is professional. People get those very confused, and it can be very problematic for you as a manager or an executive, because you are really representing your brand, even if you think you're not. And social media is one of those places where you control the image going out. For whatever you put out is whatever you put out. Now things come in and then you have to deal with those issues, but what you put out is up to you, really. I would protect myself. I would have something private that's happening on social media. You do not have to tell every little thing that happened to you during your day. We don't want to hear about your toilet habits. That's not helpful.
No.
Not very helpful. But I do believe you have to have a social media profile, not only for this free marketing or to be able to get out news very quickly, but if you're a mid-level executive and you're looking to move on, not that you would be, but say you're looking for the future, well, people are going to go online and search you out. And that's where it becomes very important that your brand is consistent, it's positive, and you have maintained it.
Two key pieces: positive and maintaining. And you said something earlier when we're thinking and holding the space of positive and maintaining our own personal brand as a representative of the company that we work for and its mission and its brand. Oh gosh. So how would you, maybe that's not the right question. You're going to learn really quickly, Steve, that I talk to think. And so. You
know what? That is actually a very female communication style.
Oh, good. I'm
Absolutely.
glad I'm not alone in this. And
you have millions and millions of other very powerful, brilliant women who do the same thing. So you're in good company.
I'm in great company. Yeah. And ladies, so just own it. We talk to think. We talk to think.
Yeah, you process out loud. The guys, when they open their mouth, they've already made the decision.
Right. Which is kind of hard because I just want to keep talking about it.
Exactly. And that's a whole other show.
It is a whole other show, although it does come into account a little bit with what we're talking about here and how we lead. When we can embrace, we got to talk it out, or the decision is already made. That means our response to the leader that is leading, right? The person we are working with, talking to, that means our engagement with them changes. Okay.
Absolutely.
So do you have any tips or ideas or a story that might illustrate when you've got people that approach conversation differently like that? We're trying to maintain our authentic self. We're trying to be who we are, yet we don't want to step on anybody's toes. So how do we not appear shy, not appear tiptoeing around something, yet be able to recognize we're different and we got to figure out how to talk to each other?
Yeah, that's a great question because it comes up daily. The first thing I wanted to say was, the default is to protect the overall brand, protect the company, and to understand or at least assume that whoever's in this conversation is protecting the brand. It's very much about the mission. No matter what, you're passionate because you're passionate about protecting and promoting your brand. So assume positive intent whenever you're walking into these conversations with someone. And also know, like you said, people have different ways of leading. They have different communication styles, and you have to be a great interpreter. So the way you look at something might not be the way somebody else is looking at it. For example, we just talked about how women will typically, they will make decisions out loud. That's why they talk to their mom, their sister, the cat, the hairstylist. Right?
I had a bear from Build-A-Bear that just said, "I love you, Jess."
And see,
I talked to when I traveled in the car, when you were in the car.
I love that. I love it. But guys, when they open their mouth, they've already made a decision. So when a guy says to you, well, you know, this is what I want to do, and you throw in a suggestion, he's not looking for a suggestion. And then you think he's just a big jerk because he's not taking any suggestions. But even when it comes to simple things like nodding. Okay, so when a woman nods, she typically is showing that she is listening. Now, when a man nods, it's to show agreement. So if we're discussing going to my in-laws or your in-laws, either one, and we say, hey, you know, honey, my mom really wants to see us, and I know how much you get along with my mom. And so tomorrow, let's head over there for lunch. And you're nodding as in I'm listening, and I'm reading that as an agreement. So the next morning, I'm packing up the car, and you're saying, well, what's going on? I said, no, honey, we talked about it last night. Didn't you agree?
Okay, you know what? I think that right there will solve almost every single marital problem and misunderstanding. The nod. I've never thought about it, and as you're describing this, I'm like, I could have avoided a problem just this morning.
That's right. So you put that in a workplace, and you're sitting around this conference table, and you've got females who are very bright, very successful, and they're nodding as they're listening. And maybe the guy up front, and I say guy intentionally, reads that as consent or agreement. The meeting's over. No. And then there's a lot of conflict because, well, you said that you were in agreement. I never said I was in agreement. We talked about it yesterday, but I never said I was in agreement. Yes, you did. I know that we all agreed on this. So he doesn't know it's the nod necessarily. And she doesn't know it's the nod. He might have thought he heard it, but he just interpreted the nod as agreement.
So this is agreement. And now I'm thinking, because, and I think that's really important to notice that. And maybe us talking to Think Out Loud people need to go, oh, I'm in agreement or I'm not in agreement, but now I'm thinking about it and actually saying those words so that we get a sense of the space that we're taking up and the way that we're showing up. And this is really important. We're talking about nonverbal cues, which could be also a whole other show. And I love what you're sharing about that. Underlying that, though, is our connection to other people.
That's
and the way that we're showing up, the way that we want to show up is going to affect our credibility, what people think about us. Because if we're always in agreement, but then behind the scenes, after the meeting, we're like, we never agreed to anything. That creates conflict in a perception of who we are. And if we're in a leadership role, this can cause problems in terms of our the perception about us for promotability. That's right. So when you're building your brand, you have to take a lot of these things into account. That it's not just your brand for the men or for the women. It's really, you want to be accessible and you want to be a positive influence across the board. Okay, I'm going to ask you a really personal question. Okay. Do you have a set of written personal values? No, I don't. Okay. Do you know what they are? Do you have a few? Yes, I do. You do? Okay. Yeah. I wrote them down for myself. Good for you. That's good. Going back to, and actually by doing this for my family, this is something that I do a lot for clients because we've got these values that surround a mission in a company. And then we've got all these people who say, yes, I understand and I ascribe to these values, at least in some part, to be able to work here and do my best and contribute effectively. Yet the meanings of those words are so different. So where this came about was when my son was born. He's 6 now. So this was a while ago that we've done this. Ryan and I, my husband, we sat down and I said, you know, we really have to know what we stand for, and no matter what goes on, how angry we get, how happy we get, whatever happens to come our way, we need a place to go back to so that we can be consistent in our response to our son. And then it occurred to me, I don't do that at my work. I'm the founder of a company that was started in 2004. So I'm like, let's do this on myself. And once I understood my personal values, I was able to bring them to what I said the values were at work. And I even found, hello, founder, creator of all this stuff, found some discrepancies in what I realized, what I thought they meant versus what other people thought the words meant in the values of our company. So being able to have that connection, being able to understand there are going to be different perspectives and definitions will help us be that person, like what you were talking about, just aware and understanding and knowing we've got an intention, and can we find out if our intention is right?
Yeah, I love that. And it goes along with goal setting.
Yes.
If what you're doing, the project or the time, the energy, or the resources you're putting into something, if it doesn't align with a goal, well, you better take a look at it again, because you've established these goals or these objectives, and everything you touch during the day should probably line up with one of those.
Oh,
that's all I got.
That's all you got. That's okay. I got.
But I love the personal mission statement. I think that's tremendous. I think it's really smart.
Thank you. And so your goals. How often do you revisit your goals?
Well, I do 5-year goals, and I will write them down and I will put them away. But that doesn't mean I put them away.
Sure.
I will. Well, then I'll put little notes to myself up around the house, on the door, on the refrigerator, wherever, Post-it notes, little reminders of what I'm aiming for in the big picture. And at first, when I heard about goal setting and, oh, well, these vision boards, and I thought, hey, yeah. Okay, hocus pocus. They work. They actually work. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, perhaps, visualization, perhaps, but they do work. And I've gone back and looked at a list of those 5 goals that I had 5 years ago, and they come true. And it's almost by magic or happenstance, but it's not really by magic or happenstance. It's really this intention that you carry with you every day, because a goal is reached not in a huge leap, but in little baby steps.
Oh my gosh. There's so much here that I just want to stop and unpack. First, it is amazing that you write down your goals. So few people do that. Or they write down their goals and they're not complete in some way. So once we get all that out of the way, the fact that you have taken this on and you say they're 5-year goals. Do you know how many companies I talk to, founders and CEOs and executive teams, that are like, we don't need a business plan. The world changes too quickly. And I'm like, that's the quickest way to go out of business. Yeah, the world is going to change. And what are you going to do about it?
Right. It's preparation. Now, because reaching those goals or those objectives, well, the path can absolutely change. So I don't even think about the path when I'm writing the goals. I just put the goal down on a piece of paper, and I don't think, well, this is impossible, because guess what? That has nothing to do with anything. Pick your goal. Now, again, like you said, the world does change. So the way to get to that goal today might be different from 4 years from now, but the goal is still there. The goal is still there. And the goal might look a little different than how you had visualized when you put it down on the paper. But essentially, it's, the same kind of thing that you're looking for, or that you're after.
Gianfranco is listening, and he just said a virtual wave. He stopped by, and he and I have actually had some conversations about goals. I do not, Gianfranco, share something about what you're thinking about this to reflect my memory. I just know the last time we were in person together, which has been several years now, we were talking about goals and what do we do about them. And so one of the things that you said, this is my mantra of life, act to plan. And everybody, I have it in bling now. You have no idea how happy I am to have bling that says act to plan. And that's the thing, the action, the writing down of the goal without any worry about what does it look like? How am I going to get there? What do I need to know? None of that matters when we're setting these, and they're really life goals. They're aspirations. They're these big goals.
That's
and
right.
When we have that intention, it's amazing that the plan, the path we're supposed to take, the things we need to learn to get to where we're going
present themselves to us.
That's right. So one of my goals was to give a TEDx talk, and I didn't know when it would be or what it would be or how it would come about, but it happened. It happened in July. And when I hit that stage, it felt like the right timing. It felt like the right timing to tell the story that I needed to tell. And if I had been presented with this opportunity 2 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't think I would have been prepared to tell this story. And one of the things that I talked about in the TED Talk was go through the doors that open. You know, there's an idea in this country that it's so heroic to kick down a door. I busted down a door. For me, that is not the most positive or best experience. Go through the doors that open, knock on the doors. Now, if they open or if they close in a world full of questions, for me, that is the most divine answer. It is the universe. For me, it's God saying, this is not the way. So be thrilled when a door is shut, because that is an answer. That says, buddy, you're going the wrong way. And if the door opens, go through. Even if you feel a little nervous about it, go through. Guaranteed the right path. In my life, that has changed everything. I used to be a very anxious, high-strung individual. I'm still high-strung, not so much anxious, because I know it's going to be okay. I go through the doors that open. And when I talk to actors, they say, I go on these auditions and I get rejected and rejected. Great. I'm glad, because that is not your path, because door will open and then you go through it. So it's not a rejection. It's just an answer. That's all it is.
Okay, I want to come back to it's just an answer, not a rejection. Before we do that, one of the things that you said the doors that are open, and then you also said the doors that you knock on, and if they open. And it takes a lot of courage to go up to a door. So one of the things I hear you saying, and I'm going to restate this because this is something I'm practicing, is it never hurts to ask. The worst that can happen is the door shuts. And until
actually, that's a good thing.
I agree.
It's a good thing.
Tell me
if
more.
The door is shut. That's your answer. Because you're right. The trick is to keep moving forward and keep asking. I'm not saying stand in place and wait for doors to hit you in the head. You know, I believe that all of us have a rendezvous with destiny. We all have our individual meetings to get to, but we have to keep going to the meetings and trying to find the doors to that meeting or find the door that leads us to the next room. Well, that's our path. That's our challenge.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Voice of Bold Business Radio, where Steve Rohr and I are talking about leading with personality. And there was another piece of this, besides going back and actually knocking on the door to get the answer. Oh, the judgment piece. I want to talk about our perception of judgment, because some people, and by the way, I'm a recovering some people in this case, when somebody says no to me, I take it really personally. Like, well, how can that be the case? I've worked so hard for this, or whatever it is. And to not take it personally can be really hard. How did you detach from that?
Well, timing is everything. I was able to detach because it worked. And when I looked at it, it was the truth for me in my life. And so there was no question. Every time something happened that was pretty great, it felt easy to me. Now, I still worked hard. I still kept moving forward, but the door just whoosh, opened up. And the other thing we were talking about is feedback. And I've done some segments on this for television, because feedback is one of those things we ask for and we don't want. We don't want to hear the feedback. We don't want to hear it. And sometimes that feedback, we lie because it helps us socially. You know, do I look fat in this, honey? There's no answer to that. But when it comes to work, it's very important we understand what feedback is, because feedback is not a rejection. It is not a rejection. Feedback is primitive, and it's about survival. So if we hop in our time machine, Jess, and we go back a few thousand years, and we're both very hungry, we're like looking for food. And we know in the forest, there are 5 kinds of red berries. 4 are nutritious and delicious, but that 5th berry, it's toxic and it will kill you. So of those 5 berries, which ones are we focusing on when we go in to find the food? The ones that will kill us.
Yes.
That 5th berry.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's better to be hungry and alive than careless and dead. So in modern times, we hear this feedback, and no matter how nutritious and delicious the positive comments are, it's the negative one that we're focused on and we obsess over. So it's a primitive idea in our brain to keep us alive. So then you have to take your modern self and say, but I'm okay. I'm okay. Listen to the feedback. We know that feedback is critical to workplace performance, to improving workplace performance and productivity, and to advancement. We know this. In our personal life, the same thing. We have to be willing to hear it. Now, it hurts a little bit, hurts a lot of it sometimes.
Yeah.
But it goes back to the fact that this is a defense mechanism that our brain has to keep us alive.
Are there things we can do to trick our brain? Because really our ego is in business to just be in the way these days, because it was the one that kept us alive. We have to be aware of that. But now when our biggest concern is don't jaywalk so you don't get hit by a car, that kind of thing, right? That's just general awareness, some things along that front. What can we do to trick our brain to allow us to get out of our own way?
Yeah, the first thing is assume positive intent. Assume that the other person really wants to help us. Now, they might have said something in a very clumsy way, but they are really about helping us. Now, if they didn't care about us, they might have not said anything and moved on. So assume that they are there to give you the feedback to help you improve your performance. The second thing is practice makes perfect. So really seek out the practice of feedback. Ask for feedback. How did I do? What do you think? Very important, because every time you get it, then it becomes a little bit easier. It becomes a little bit easier as you move along. So definitely assume positive intent and practice feedback. Practice the feedback.
And I would add, may I add one thing to that?
Sure.
So we're talking about the self, and we must lead by example. So when somebody asks us to be truthful and honest with positive intent, even if it comes out clumsy, even if it comes out and it's very likely going to be misunderstood, we get to practice that transparency piece too. We're giving what we would like to receive.
Yes, and one of the tricks, if you want to call it a trick, you wait for the person giving you the feedback to finish giving the feedback or finish their sentence, because the tendency is to jump right in there and start defending in some way, but then you're not listening. And if you jump in and you shut that person down in a very severe way, they might not give you feedback ever again because they think, oh, she's very sensitive or he's got very thin skin. But we know that feedback is valuable. We know it makes us better. So if we shut that avenue of feedback down, we're really only hurting ourselves. And thank them for the feedback. Say thank you. You have to might maybe grit your teeth to say it, but if you're a leader in your company and somebody's giving you feedback and you want everybody on your team to be able to take in feedback and you can't, wow. Actions.
That's right.
Lead by example.
And that actually comes back to this personality that we have and what we choose to show and not show. We've talked a little bit about the external to the internal and our role to show up in the company and protect the company's brand that we work for, also our own. And this idea that our personality, the way we're perceived, can actually predefine us for people. For example, for me, for a long time, and still I face this occasionally, is I'm that happy girl who can get anything done and I'm easy to get along with. Well, that's great. However, the pointed conversations that I'm willing to have, that I can say with a smile and get away with it,
Sure.
I mean, you know, the very thought-provoking questions, the willingness to be introspective and guide people places that are uncomfortable in a safe way, none of that is what the impression is. And depending on what we need our personality to be, to lead from the front, from behind, to achieve the goals that we want, our 5-year goals, we may need to put different personality traits forward and practice other personality traits that we want other people to see. And then going back to your feedback idea, this practice, we can see if we're effectively making those changes within ourselves. So we show up the way we want to show up.
That's right. And it is a slippery slope, though, because you always put the brand of the company first. We know very strident executives out there with big personalities, which is great. And some companies have a cult of personality. Okay. But then when you think about that and say you have a crisis, something happens, well, you've got your own personality that's pretty out there. And then you've got the company and the stakeholders and the stockholders to protect. Well, you have to put the company first. Yes. So whatever that means, you have to step back as you, the personality, and be able to put the interests of your company first, because that's really what it's about. You have to think, look, yes, this is my company. Maybe I started it, or maybe I'm a mid-level executive and I have a lot of ownership on it. But look, that's feeding a lot of families. It's putting kids through school. It is really, it's a lot bigger than you at that point. You also have to think, if I make myself the entire focal point of this company, I will never be able to take a vacation. Cheers. I will never be able to move clients from my account to somebody else's because they want me, because I'm the big personality. So you have to be very, very careful or intentional about making sure that you have not become so central, so focused, so branded to this company that you no longer have flexibility. Because at some point, it's going to be about business development for you. You're no longer maybe going to be working with the clients day to day, but the clients want to sign with the guy or the woman who they know as the personality. You got to be very careful with that, or your growth might be stunted. And you also don't want to become too big. There are egos, perhaps you've heard of this, there are egos in business, in politics, wherever, and you don't want to eclipse the corner office. Not a good thing. So look around your environment, survey the situation, and be smart about what you're putting out. Be smart. And of course, like going back to the beginning of the show, we talked about being positive. You never, ever put anything negative out, ever, on social media. Never. Not about a film, not about a restaurant, nothing. Ever, ever, ever. Because you're not only just representing you, you're representing the company. And guess what? You could be dissing someone who is potentially looking to hire you in the future. Just saying. So be very positive. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all.
That is age-old advice. I remember my great-grandma telling me that when I was 16 and 17 years old. One of the last times I saw her when she was alive. She taught me two things. That was one of them that was really important to her. And the other one, how strength shows up in a lot of different ways. And this was a woman with a lot of personality and overcame a lot of hardship, raising a whole bunch of kids, holding a family together. And oh man, she one wicked CEO today. I'm just thinking about it going, yeah, Grandma Ruth, that's true. So this inside to this outside came back in again, how we are and our personal journey to become the leader we want, to be perceived the way that we want, and at the same time, holding the space and protecting the mission and the brand. And so there's got to be this place where our personal values align, or at least we can say, yes, we believe in the values as they are described here for the company that we belong to. Because when we don't, I think that's when we get fearful, or we stick our head in the sand and we want to avoid, or we have a whole bunch of miscommunication all the way around, and the egos get in the way, or too much ownership is allowed to be given to one person and then they burn out. Things like that.
Well, when we talk about internally, leading and your brand, we can be very, very strong personality. But we want to make sure that that strong personality doesn't shut down the feedback around us. Because if somebody's not comfortable saying something that might not be popular inside the company, whether it's a protocol, process, product, whatever, if they can't say what they need to say, you're in big trouble. You're in very big trouble, because then people are scared. They're scared. And especially if you punish them. If somebody comes up with an idea and you punish them immediately, nobody's ever going to come up with a good idea anymore. And this hurts everybody. Now, I've been fortunate to work at places where you can say whatever you want. It may not be implemented. They might think it's an idiotic idea, but they're not going to punish you. There's no long-term ramification. You know, it's not going to come up 2 weeks ago when Bob had that terrible idea. You're never going to hear that. And that was the beauty of these organizations, because they were able to have these open forums from the second assistant to the second assistant to the controller. Everybody can say what they need to say. Now, of course, you say it with respect and you say it in the most positive way. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you cannot be punished. And you have to feel like, I can say this. Because sometimes when the people in the trenches know far better reality than the people in the corner office. And they're dealing with the customer. They're dealing with the customer. And if they're getting feedback from a customer that is not aligning with how the executives think the customers are dealing with the company, well, you need to hear that.
It's almost like the company and the executive team is embracing what you said twice. So we'll say it a third time for good measure. And that is assume positive intent.
That's right.
And when the company's leadership is doing that, other people have a safe space to step into and recognize there will be zero shame. There may be some looks. It may never go forward. And that's the end of it.
That's the end of it.
And that's the end of it.
Absolutely. You know, that is how you grow. And the more ideas that come in, the better off you are. Mm-hmm. And guess what? If you didn't care, if you're sitting in a meeting and you just don't care because this company sucks and you're moving on with your life, you're not going to say anything. Right. So the people who are speaking up are the people who are most personally invested or have most pride or most dedicated to the mission statement. These are the people you want to listen to. Yeah. So if you start punishing them, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble, because the people who may not be saying anything are looking on monsterjobs.com for some place to go. They don't care.
They don't care. That's right. I remember it was like anticlimactic. When I left, my first company was sold and I worked for the company that acquired it for many years. And I was a very well-known throughout the industry. And when I decided to leave, it was like there was scandal everywhere. And I'm like, seriously, there's scandal. So I was being interviewed and all this other good stuff. And I had nothing bad to say. The story has come out since then. And it's true. Our paths diverged and we no longer were able to support each other in the way that we needed to support each other to work together, me with the company and the company for me. So we went our separate ways, and that's all I said. And people were like, there's nothing else. I'm like, no, there's nothing else.
And even if there is something else, you don't say anything. The industry's too small and you're going to hit these people again, and you might see them at a conference. And what are you going to do? Avoid walking across to get, another beverage, because you've got the executive team that you used to work with over there. Yep. You've got to be very careful with those things. And guess what? There are so many facets to leaving or joining a company. Mm-hmm. And some of those you never talk about because they're confidential. Some of them are personal and you don't want to talk about. So you just be very positive. You're exactly right. This is just the time for you to move forward or move on, and perhaps for the company to do the same. So what's the big deal? And the more you're calm about it and you don't spread rumors or you don't gripe about things or complain, the faster it will go away and the better you will look. The better you will look. Always. You'll look like a pro.
You'll look like a pro. And people will remember that. That is a credibility builder every single time. So Gianfranco actually was sharing in our YouTube comments about what he does to keep his goals in front of him and top of mind. And I would like to invite everybody else that's watching to step up have a little courage, type that comment, and share with us how you are working on your short-term and long-term goals. And I really want to know, do you guys have 5-year goals? I thought I might be the only one. I am glad to know Steve also makes 5-year goals. That is amazing. And we're coming up on the end of the show. And Steve, I ask everybody this, something about bold. And so I'm going to ask you, why is it bold to lead with personality today?
Number one, I don't think we have a choice. The marketplace has a lot of noise, and it's very competitive. You've got people from all walks of life who want to do what you want to do. So you need to be bold in your personality to get attention, number one. Number two, to become a leader, because there's nothing sexier or more attractive than confidence. Nothing. If there is, please tell me, because I'd like to start working on it. Really, truly. And people are attracted to those magnets of confidence. So even if you don't feel 100% confident, be bold about it. Because one of my sayings is, or one that I tend to go back to, is very old, it's ancient. Fortune favors the bold. It really does. And things will come to you. So be bold out there, really do it. I want to say one quick thing about the tricks to getting to your goal. And these are very simple things, but sometimes when I have a goal in mind, I will then make it my password. Something in 2017. I'll make it my password. So even though I'm not thinking about it, I'm really drilling it in every time I use it on a password. And the second thing I do is I make it my screensaver, or I make it my desktop, whatever the goal is, to look at it, visualize it. Studies have shown that even looking at a penny, who has a penny anymore? They're somewhere, will incite you or encourage you to make money. It really drives you to make more money. So there's little visual cues, or those little word cues that you use. Now, that's not putting a huge sign. It's not revisiting the goal every day in a traditional way. But for me, it tends to work.
You're attracting, by setting that intention and taking those actions, you're attracting and inviting anything that will help you around that concept,
That's right.
That idea. That's right. To find the open doors and to make sure the doors that need to close are closing as quickly as possible.
That's right. You want that door to slam shut and stay slam shut. The worst is when the door is half open. Then you're in big trouble. I'm telling you, fingers in doors never work out. Never. I'm going to use that, and I'll credit you with that, but that's brilliant. That is absolutely true.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve, for joining us today. We are so glad for your participation and just coming to visit. And thank you very much, everybody who is watching and listening. After this show is over, I will be making some program notes, and they will be posted by late this afternoon, early evening at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com/P92. That is thevoiceofboldbusiness.com/P92. You can also search Steve's name, Steve Rohr, or Lead with Personality. Don't forget, subscribe and rate our program. Tell us what you think. Tell us how it's going, because it's with your comments and feedback that we continue to deliver the content that you like, that you want, that will develop who you are as a leader today. Because it's your experience, it's what you are going through that defines what it means to be a leader today, right now, in this world, in this marketplace. It's bold to go after solutions, to take action, and to make decisions. Remember, lead with personality.
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.